I call this meeting of the Beaufort County Beaufort County Board of Education Finance Committee meeting to order. It's February 20th. The time is 5:03. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Rachel? Okay, unanimous. Public comments, there are no members of the public here this evening. We have John Dowling present as the only other board member, and Reggie Murphy and Tanya's here, and Robin and Molly, obviously. So let's move ahead to our first agenda item, our approval of our January 14th, 2020 minutes.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Sorry, I didn't ask for discussion. I assumed I hadn't heard of any edits, so, all right. Unanimous. Moving on, PE 3.7, fiscal year 2020 second quarter financial statements. Tanya, do you want to lead off?
Sure. So this is PE 3.7, is the second quarter financial report through December 31st, for the 6 months ended December 31st, 2019. Rachel, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, I might slide a little closer.
I can also put this in here. Let me do this.
So this report includes all funds for the school district. And generally, we focus first primarily on the general fund, the largest of the funding sources that we have currently. General fund revenues were received at 46.7%. These are total revenues, local, state, federal. At the end of this quarter, prior year, our collections were 44.4%. Specifically, local top property tax collections are coming in much better than the prior year, which is very good news. We're at 50.9% as of December 31st. Prior year was 47.3%. Now, we have January collections in, and I'm going to show that to the board on February work session, 28th or 29th. But our percentages are 93.7% collections as of the end of January. Nice. So I'm going to display that, which means we're well ahead of where we were last year at this time. So that's very promising to know that we should not be experiencing any sort of shortfall for this year.
Weren't we at like 80-something% at this point last year? I think we
yes, we were at 80 in the 80 percentile.
Yeah.
And so we were in much worse shape last year.
Yes.
So based on my projections, we're coming in right on target of the budget for local tax collections. So that's very good. During this period, we were paying back the TAN, the tax anticipation note, due to borrowings that we made in the fall, in the September-October timeframe. So those have all been paid back now. We pay back very quickly and to minimize the interest cost to the district. So we pay a full interest cost. So when you look at financials, you'll see when we do pay that back in the next quarter that financial statements, you'll see, say, $115,000 or so of interest costs. And later on in the year, we'll receive a rebate back of a portion of that interest. So it then lowers later on in the year. So I think we spent about $30,000 last year on interest costs, so I would expect it to be about that this year. So those are totally repaid now. State revenues, we're reporting a little higher than the prior year at 41% at the end of the second quarter. That's EIA funds and federal funds, Title I and that sort of thing. And then the state has what they call a contribution credit. The State Public Employee Benefits Association is PEBA, And each year for the last 3 years, we've received a credit of 1.2 million because of a portion of the health insurance increases that the state absorbed. We were receiving it in the form of a credit to that account, so it's a little different than we're accustomed to. E-rate was a little bit down, but again, it depends on the time we file them or making claims, so the spending will likely pick up toward the end of the year, and we'll see those percentages go up. So all in all, the revenues look in good shape. As for the expenditures, we're 0.2 of a point less than last year, so very small differences there. We've spent 41.7% versus 41.9%, so we're right on track to be at the same point we were in the prior year. And then there are a few points about some special revenue funds. There are just some differences in some of our special revenue funds that show maybe a larger spending in the prior year than the current year, and that's because of some of the grants that we had in the prior year and had to be spent out in the prior year for equipment, such as the Child Find Expansion Grant was in the previous year, and a Rural Utility Services Grant that we use for distance learning opportunities and telemedicine. Had that grant in the prior year, so we bought a large chunk of equipment, and we don't have that expense this year, so it looks like the expenditures are down, and there are good reasons for that. So I think as far as the grants, as we have the grant writer now, we will be experiencing some of those increases coming back on, so that's something to be looking forward to. And then capital projects, we were finishing up the Well Branch project in prior quarters. Now we're seeing design work for pre-referendum work. So many of the increases in services paid for in capital projects fund are because of that design work for River Ridge and May River, prepping for the referendum projects. So all in all, it's a good report. Everything seems to be tracking as in the way that we projected, and so I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Dick.
I got a couple of questions. Overall budget performance by the halfway point of the year looked good. I have a couple of questions on a couple of different items. Page number 15. Maintenance and operations, salaries, percentage used 67%. That's a little concerning. Why are we overspent? Salaries is a recurring thing. If we're already halfway through, we're at 67%. I don't have a problem with higher percentages and things like supplies and materials, because there's a lot of front loading in that. But I do become concerned when I see 67% expenditures on salary and maintenance and operations.
Okay.
Also on page 19, under community services, salaries at 61%. So again, salaries concern me when we're over the 50% expenditure rate. In those two areas, all the others I found were within tolerance, but those two were out.
Okay.
So if you would please, could you let me know what's
Certainly
going on
can do
with
that. I don't know the exact details at the moment, but
Yeah, I understand. No, I understand.
but I'll definitely look into it and I can communicate back.
Other than that,
Committee.
your expenditure performance looks good.
Rachel, any questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
No,
I'm sorry, you're breaking up just a little bit. Can you try again?
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. No questions,
No questions. Okay. Tanya, page 24, the transfers.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Okay, those are transfers, our schools, accept revenues for the technology usage fee, the $20 fee that's charged for each student. Those are for any repair, those go back into a district pot
Yes.
for repairs and maintenance
Remember.
on the iPads and the laptops. So we're collected at the school level, so what this is transferring these to the district office level.
Okay.
And then we pay invoices at the district office level for repairs
That makes sense.
in lump sum. So they're just transferring from the school level up to the first line of district office.
Okay.
And we pay at that level in bulk.
Makes
So we're
sense.
making repairs in bulk.
So, would the board have to weigh in on those transfers? Is that something we need to?
It's not a budget transfer, which is dictated in the policy. It's more of an internal transfer. It stays
Awesome.
within the same bank
Yeah.
account.
Okay.
So it's just
Yeah.
moving from school locations to
Gotcha.
the, so there's really, it's a recording
Yes.
at the school
Okay.
level versus the district office level, all in the same student activities bank account. So
Gotcha.
no budgets
Okay.
involved and no separate bank accounts involved.
Sounds good. John, do you have any? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to,
Recommend approval.
recommend approval to the full board?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Now, we've looked at this PE the way we always do in the past, just as it's written and in reference to, you know, a specific period of time, this 3.7. But I'm wondering if we shouldn't take a second swipe at it now to look at it from the standpoint of our direction from the chair to review each PE as they come in. Or, I'm gonna ask Dick, you and Rachel for your input here. Do you want to have a separate meeting where we have all the finance-related PEs and go through them with edits at a dedicated meeting? How would you like to carve that up?
How many do we have?
How many do we have? That's what's gonna be my next question. Roughly.
Okay, so we have 2 today.
Yes.
We have the debt management PE, which we'll be doing at the work session. So that's, and then there's a budget, I believe there's a budget PE.
So that's 3, or is that 5? Because there's 2 today.
I think there's 4.
Okay.
Because this one doesn't count for, I think this is for the quarterly financial reporting. I believe there's a separate one for the creation of the budget as well.
Okay.
So there may be a 4th.
So we're looking at probably at least 5, correct?
I can think of 4 at this
Okay,
time.
yeah, and you
But
would.
there may be others that I haven't thought of. Reggie, can you think of any others?
I can only think of 4.
Okay, so there's roughly 4. Rachel?
Sorry. I believe there's
7?
There is one for the audit, so that is
Okay.
Is this
5.
better?
Yes. That's way better, thank you.
Sorry. Okay, so I believe there's 7 P's that are related to financial administration because we've been, those are all in one when we've been working in the policy committee. So, and I don't know if you have that, that's.
Out in the car, I can go out and look at them.
Financial administration that was out, 7 different ones, and I believe we're going over
You're
two of
on
them
board docs.
today.
They're in board
With
docs.
regard to minority and women business enterprises as well as the one that we're on right now.
Audit has one.
So they are going to already be, in the draft that we bring forward to the board at the work session.
So let me see if I understand correctly. You are actually, out of your ad hoc committee, reviewing each and every one of these finance PEs and, you know, looking at it from a standpoint of adding and changing and correcting and all that good stuff. Is that correct?
Well, we're
direction that we received from the chair, that each committee would be looking at their related PEs. Is that not how we're operating? I'm confused now as to how
No,
to.
we certainly can do that. I mean, that would definitely give more direction, I think, to the school board. But I'm just letting you know that when we have our work session coming up in like a week, that we are bringing forward those 7 keys that are finance related that are going to go into now what we would call an O.
What you,
Go.
maybe I can explain, what the ad hoc group is doing is they were taking the PEs and matching them with the OEs and converting them and seeing what's in there, what's not, and if they match up.
Okay.
All the PEs are coming to the work session when we go through the policy governance within all of the work. I think also what was directed is, as was Rachel saying, the finance group can look at the finance PEs and bring your recommendations. But all of the PEs will be coming to the work session because they were being matched up with the OEs.
Excellent. Now,
Does
what-
that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. Well, what do we intend to do with this at the work session? I mean, the work session is in how many weeks?
This next weekend.
It's next weekend. So it's not likely that the finance committee will have an opportunity between now and then. We might, we can look at it, to take a peek at all of these 7. I mean, are we gonna try to approve a document at the work session? What's your understanding, Rachel?
I believe we're doing a first reading was the intent, I believe. And I was going to point out that beyond just those 7 that are related to financial administration, there's also PEs that are going to be in the new policy manual related to CP2, which is budget and financial planning, as well as, let me see,
PE2,
4, which is tax and protection.
Mm-hmm.
P,
So there is a lot more that's going to be in there besides those stuff that are related to financial administration.
if you go to board docs,
Yeah.
all of the PEs are in board docs currently, and if you look under let me go to,
It's from our February 17th meeting.
correct, if you look at the ad hoc February 17th meeting,
It has the PE document, that PE
Where
document,
will
that
I find that?
PE2
go into
agreement
board doc,
was
get out, okay, go back up to meeting, go to your meetings.
the finance committee.
Where it says 2020, go down to February 17th, ad hoc.
Got it.
So is it the first
Do you-
or is the second document, Robin, do you know?
It's in the, go into,
Because the
Proof.
second batch
go, E, go in E,
is E.
and then it says PEs,
Okay.
it's right. You want to see it? Go in the second row,
Yeah, PE, there it
and then all of them are listed right there.
Excellent. Okay. So is this just a compilation of, are these
Those are all of the PEs.
for finance?
No, they're all of the PEs.
is.
This is only
PE2 budget
15
and financial planning.
So does that sound right, 15 total? Because it's about 15 pages, roughly.
There's 12, there's 11 or 12 PEs total.
Is that it?
Yes.
Divided up among the different branches of the district? You know,
But
HR
there's
has
like
theirs.
3.7, 3.1.
Right,
there's three
right.
points,
Okay.
multiple, sometimes there are multiple reports coming out of one.
Exactly. Right, you're recording off of like
Yeah.
Tanya said, PE3, but you're looking at the report for the whatever it is,
Okay.
quarterly and so forth.
So, Robin, you're the only one that attends all of these meetings, okay? So has every committee, every standing committee, are they at a point now where they've actually reviewed their
No.
respective PEs?
No,
So we're expected to do this at the work session?
the coherent governance is going to be given to you at the work session, what the committee has worked on. The committee has combined
Okay,
the policies
okay.
with board's policies, put them together.
Mhm.
They've taken the PEs and matched them with their
Gotcha. Well,
OEs.
that part I got.
So all of that's gonna be brought to the work session
Okay.
for the full board's review. And you're going to do that in 2 days. What you do at those 2 days, that's up to you all as the board.
Mhm.
And how far you get, that's up to you as the board.
Yeah,
You know, I had assumed that these PEs, as written, as codified now, would be used, and there's not a responsibility of any of the committees to go in and validate or revalidate those, that I would just understand that they would be just moved over into the governance model to make sure it was covered under the governance model. But I didn't see a requirement to go down to each PE and say, yeah, it's a good one, or no, it's a bad one, or we ought to,
did you see
Tweak
the
that.
email from Tina?
I did.
Okay, so, and David reiterated it, because I wasn't sure how to proceed. Remember, I wanted it on the agenda, how do we proceed, what is our actual direction?
Right.
And it was clear that we were supposed to be really, actually solely focusing on PEs right now. But as you can see, our agenda this evening has other items that are covered in our board approved scope. But that was clear, and it's in an email. And so, I mean, look, I'm happy to let that go. I'm just trying to follow direction. I'm trying to understand what our other standing committees are doing. I'm happy to just show up without having reviewed our PEs to the work session. That's fine.
Well,
Well, Joey, this is something that I'm planning on doing is I'm planning on looking through those PPs that are listed there and making some decisions. There's some ones that I might have question on or think that maybe we need some clearer language because essentially what we're doing is taking the PEs and inserting them into our policy manual as OEs pretty much verbatim. So I want to make sure if any of those need tightening up or clarifying language or even just revisiting for making sure that that's good policy.
That makes sense. Okay, so just do it on our own time, bring them with you, bring our changes and suggestions at the work session. So I'm actually, as we move forward and we plan our agendas, our finance committee agendas, I'm gonna just, I'm not gonna add that as an area of focus then. Is that agreed to by
Agreed.
Dick is good,
Agreed.
and Rachel, that's good for you?
Yeah, that's good for now.
Okay.
If something changes in the work session or they do something otherwise, then
Yeah.
maybe that's probably that doesn't work for now.
That's fine, it's just, direction wasn't clear there, so now I have a better handle on reality. Let's move on, since we had a recommendation on PE 3.7. Thank you, Tanya.
Sure.
PE 4.5, minority
I think-
slash,
You want to say something?
oh, did you have a question, John?
I think John wanted to.
Did you?
Okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Minority and women-owned business enterprise report. Tanya? Yes.
So this is PE 4.5. It is a requirement of the procurement code, actually. In the procurement code is a minority women-owned business enterprise goal of currently 20%. And so as we begin the process of identifying how we meet a goal, we have to identify what is it as a percentage of the controllable budget. So the controllable budget, we look at all funds, including capital funds, and so general fund, capital, and all others, and exclude in those budgets dollar amounts that we have no control over. For example, utilities. I think we pay close to $10 million a year in utilities. We would subtract cost of utility services, and perhaps SROs might be a good example. We don't have the luxury or ability to go out and control who we are hiring for an SRO. So those are just a couple examples. So those would be removed as part of the controllable budget. So identified a number for the half of the year of $48,034. That's on page 2 of 4 there. That's a 6-month figure. And we capture certified minority enterprises and non-certified minority enterprises in this report. There are very few certified firms in our area. In fact, we know of one construction firm currently. Again, it's a very invasive, long process. So we are able, we'll capture both as information for the board. So the goal for, so 48 million times 20% is $9.6 million would be the goal. And so we were unable to meet that goal with the services and construction that were provided in this, and that is not uncommon in years of very little less construction. So we spent $275,000 approximately with certified minority women business enterprises, which is a 0.57% of that controllable budget. If you add in the non-certified to that, you get a total award of $1 million approximately, which would be 2.23% of the controllable budget. So as you can see, we're not meeting that currently.
Excuse me, Tyler, where you reading that, that you're saying that?
Right here.
Oh, gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. Thank you.
And so we did receive 21 solicitations from minority bids. 6 were canceled, 7 were awarded. 1 bid was received from a certified minority bid enterprise during that period. 3 of them were, 3 additional bids were from construction services, only 1 of which was a certified minority women business enterprise. Actual dollars we spent were $275,000 with certified vendors, and 3 of them, the total number of firms utilized were 3. So as you can see, we have some room for growth, and I think the referendum will provide us an opportunity to do that in the coming months. Page 3 of 4 shows the categories of services that we are seeing. We have catering, therapy services, and then mostly in the construction areas. So the graphic demonstrates that the red bars are your actual expenses and percentages toward that goal. The blue bars are your goal of 20%. So you can see back to the left-hand side end in 2014-15 timeframe, we were almost or just barely exceeding that threshold. That was during times of building River Ridge and May River High School, and then it's fallen off pretty heavily since then. So I think that we're going to see that trend turn in the upcoming years, and we are going to be working toward that. And the way we're going to be working toward that is through a series of methods. And today, actually, myself, Dr. Rodriguez, Robert Auding, member of Peary and Associates, and the project program management company, met with Larry Holman, Gerald Neal, and of Neal Construction, and one other gentleman, I don't recall his name, he's the Gullah radio station gentleman. So we got some information from them about when is a good time to meet, is a good time for the members of the African American community to come to us, and we found a great opportunity to actually go to them. So in March, they're planning on having a small business association meeting at the Black Chamber of Commerce in Beaufort, and we are going to work out a way to get the contractors and our staff to go to them. So so that was one point that we were making. Also, advertising in a few different ways. Definitely the Gullah radio station was a recommendation, so we're going to make sure to send an advertisement of the job fairs on that station, and we already advertised or communicated with the Black Chamber of Commerce, but we'll make sure to get the word out. So we're going to be meeting as Huey is just coming on, and we're just still working through the contractual, finalizing the contract. We're going to be sitting down working with them and our 4 general contractors to emphasize the goal and the goal of the procurement code, the goal of the board, and to make sure, see what steps we need to take to enhance that, that participation.
You know, I've, since we had the people come in and talk on the public comments, I've been doing some research. And one of the big things in contracting is, of course, licensing and then bonding, or getting a insurance policy. And surprisingly, South Carolina is one of the strictest states. There's 5, they listed on the, I did my Google search, 5 states that are really very prescriptive on what you have to be awarded government contracts. And South Carolina, surprising to me, was one of them. And then I went to the county and looked at the licensing piece. I had no idea that, I thought contractors are contractors are contractors. No, that's not true. There's residential contractors, and then there's major contractors, and you have to pass a test on the rules. You have to come into the county, get your license, pay your license fee, pass a test before it's actually awarded. And I thought, well, okay, what about the bonding and insurance? Well, the amount of bonding depends upon the size of the project. And so your amount of insurance you need is a percentage of that. And when you go in to get this insurance, you have to submit a financial statement. And the financial statement has to show that you have enough assets that if you walk away from the job, you gotta have enough money in the bank to take care of the rest. So that's a huge burden. I mean, that's difficult for a small contractor to be able to meet that. And again, I had no idea. But I'm really glad that you got with Larry Holman and so on. There are obviously contractors out there that know this and can meet this, and maybe we haven't been doing the best job that we can to reach out to them to make sure they know about it.
Right.
But it's not a simple project. I know that the bonding is critical.
Absolutely.
Because I had a contract that I was working with, and the contractor blew it off, and we were stuck. And found out that he falsified his insurance claims. He didn't really have insurance.
He's
So
a problem, man.
yeah, we had a problem. So that's why I asked the questions when we had that, and then doing a little bit of research. But I'm really glad that we got
Yes,
to reach
I
out.
think it was a very good meeting, and we had a plan of action to go forward, so it's good.
All due respect, I did have the child meeting with Larry Holman and Gerald Yo and whoever y'all met. Those are some of the stakeholders. Those are not all the major, some of the players in the county. And I think it's a total. As a board member, I'm really disgusted when I look at it. That we asked for 20%, and when I look at the email that she sent me, that basically when you really look at it, it's 0.43%. When you look at minorities, because basically what's going on is that contractors are basically saying a minority can be a woman, a female. So basically what contractors is possibly doing is going and they're getting their wives to go out there and get contract companies in their names. And then they still get these contracts. And then when I look on the other side of it, we're requiring these people to get a $8 to $12 million insurance. Now, I don't really see where some of the projects that we have really calls for that type of insurance, because you have other insurances like I emailed her about the I think it was the B5, where it has unlimited. It's just the same, and I feel that some of this wording is in place so that it will be certain contractors that certain contractors will be able to get these contracts, and that concerns me because of the fact that now we're talking about sending money And some people may not like what I'm saying, but it is what it is. When we're talking about sending all this money outside of Beaufort County. Now I have a problem with that. If we have people here who are paying tax dollars, and we're asking them for tax dollars, people who have put the skin in the game, and we're sending these contracts because all these contracts doesn't call for this type of insurance. We have some work that is being done in this district that can be done with the less amount of insurance, and that's the reality of it. Now, however, some people agree with me, some people don't agree with me. It is what it is. That's how I feel. That's how I see it. And when I look within the last 4 or 5 years, it's went down, and we have not met it. I mean, either you meet the goal or you don't meet the goal. And when you don't meet the goal, what's the plan that we have the plan of action? I mean, the goal hasn't been met within the last 4 or 5 years. That's disturbing to me. I mean, the same thing with the achievement gap. If the achievement gap is not being reached, then something has to be done. So I am not happy with it that the goal has not been reached within the last 4 or 5 years, and that also there are things that we need to look at within the procurement code, and also when I look at the contract, good faith was in the contract. I mean, if good faith was in there, you talking about 8-12 million, that won't do nothing for you. So so those are just concerns that I have.
I'm gonna get to Mr.
No
Egan.
problem.
Just one brief comment, that could be a change that we make to the performance expectation. The expectation right now essentially is to simply follow the procurement code and its policies. But perhaps we might wanna look at that, and the expectation might be, something different. We will meet our goal of, you know what I'm saying? And so, but that's a discussion for the board. If we're not looking at that at the committee level, that's for another time.
That's a slippery slope. I mean,
It's-
procurement code is law.
It all is a slippery slope. That's what you did. It all is a slippery slope. It all is.
I'm not saying to not follow the procurement code. That's a given. You have to follow the guidelines outlined in there. But what I'm saying is you may take the expectation even further, so that when the board approves it, they're approving that we actually met the 20% or the 15%. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So right now, when we approve this PE, all we're saying is, yes, we followed our procurement code.
Yeah.
We're not saying we met our goal. Tony, sorry for the interruption.
Just 2 comments. One is, what were we doing 14, 15, and 16 to be successful?
Major construction, that was the big construction.
Well, and I guess there's major construction. I think we have, some pretty good construction going on all year. And the second question I have, what are we doing with the major general contractors to incentivize them to hire subcontractors to our local? If that's a process that perhaps could be considered. These big construction projects do require large bonding, but it's just you're chasing your tail. You can't get the large contract, therefore you can't have the income to get the bonding, and you can't get the insurance. So it's just a cyclical thing. It's just like, as Will said, it's the achievement gap. If I can't read in 3rd grade and nothing's intervening, I'm gonna not be able to read in 4th grade, and before I know it, I'm in 8th grade and I still can't read. So it becomes circular. So perhaps we can look at I understand that big construction projects, but $20 million a year in this district goes out for facility maintenance and preservation. That's a lot of wood for most general contractors to be able, to get that. So I just think maybe we could look at it with some fresh eyes, and again, incentivize some of the big contractors. They have to bring people in from where they're coming from anyway, if they're not residents. Maybe it's more cost effective to hire local subcontractors with meeting the guidelines that's required. Absolutely, because I think you don't want to compromise the standards and qualities that's being done. But just a fresh thought, that's all.
Thank you. Dick?
There's an issue, Will is absolutely right. There's a lot of monkey business goes on about what is a minority business. And the federal government subsidizes federal construction projects. For example, if a prime comes in with X number of dollars bid and another it comes in at a little higher than that. If it's a minority business, the federal government will give you a discount, if you will.
But they have preferences in the law.
Preferences
We don't
under
have.
under the law, that's right. But we don't have that in the state to allow us to do that. And I tell you from personal experience, Native American businesses, you'll have one guy who's been given 51% of a paper stock, and so he is the owner, and he doesn't do anything. But because of the advantage he gets by being a Native American-owned business, he gets more bids. And so it is a very, a slippery slope. But as far as incentives, what you're talking about, a local contractor, if he's bonded, if he's got proper license and everything else, is very attractive to a prime because of what you said, the distances involved. They will come in underneath somebody from Charleston or whatever, because they gotta move all their people, move all their equipment and stuff down, whereas a local doesn't. So that's something that has to be, there's a natural advantage for a local contractor.
But again, do we make it attractive for them to go out and interview and bring these
Well,
local people in?
That's
That's
right.
part of it,
Well,
and that's
let-
always been the debate.
Yeah.
Let me interject here. Some of this spills over into operations.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, in fact, I would say the vast amount of this conversation so far has. Remember, let's stay focused on the PE is really asking the board to vote yes or no. Did we follow our procurement code? That's it. It's very simple. And these are all relevant points, but that's really all that's in front of us right now. John?
Comment and a question.
Yeah,
Comment is, it's easy to develop a mindset that the procurement code is all you have to do. It's a set of minimum requirements, and the board is absolutely free, via policy, I presume, Reggie, to exceed
you can
the
increase,
requirements
You can
of the
increase.
procurement
great.
code. you know.
but that's.
So nobody should be bashful
Yeah,
about
you can.
adding verbiage to
Right.
PEs. But my question is this, and I might have missed it because this audio situation is not the greatest. For the work session, is the product of the ad hoc policy committee coming in going to be that the PEs match up appropriately? Or have they been wordsmithing the PEs to make improvements to them?
You have not been wordsmithing the PEs, correct, Rachel? We're having a lot of trouble. You're breaking up. I'm sorry.
We don't hear me?
Yeah, that's a
go ahead.
little better. Thanks, Rachel.
Sorry, I'm switching between speaker, not on speaker, but no, not exactly. I don't think we have to really make any sort of changes to the PC fund.
That's it.
You're correct.
So what we'll get to see is the PEs as they've existed all along.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept PE 4.5?
So moved.
Second? Second from Rachel. This is to recommend approval to the full board. And again,
Recommend approval or acceptance, because you said.
Recommend.
is it
Acceptance,
acceptance?
because you said you didn't want to.
Acceptance,
Acceptance.
okay. And again, all we're asking the board to accept is the fact that we have followed the guidelines in our procurement code. That's it, no more, no less at this juncture, anyway.
Yes, Madam Chair,
Yes,
I just wanted to, add two things. Number one is I was pulling up, this is maybe for Tanya or whoever, things that they're reaching out and whatnot. I just put up the Black Chamber of Commerce, and they have 2020 bid opportunities for the district listed here. But I don't know how they're going about getting that information, if we're sending it to them, or if they're having to go to our website to pull it. So that may be a conversation that needs to be had. And then I was going to make a suggestion to the Smith that if he had any wordsmithing of anything that he didn't want to do,
here's what she's saying. Bring any suggested edits to that PE with you to the work session next week. Okay.
Regarding what?
The minority and women, performance expectation, okay?
No problem.
Because Rachel is saying that's when suggestions will be received, not here today. Even though that was our earlier direction, we won't go back there, okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
I,
Rachel? Good, unanimous. Okay, our next agenda item is Tanya's bringing us a revised timeline for the informal solicitation of bond counsel. Tanya, just refresh our memory on how informal, what that means in this instance.
The formal bid process and RFQ, RFP will not be used in this instance. This item is an exemption, a procurement exemption. So we have the ability to request information from bond counsel through various attorneys, and can do it. We can run the scope of work very similar, and a request for information, which I'm using acronym RFI, in place of that, so that we can. It basically is the same process, but just not the technical RFP or RFQ forms. Ranking would be similar, the committee structure would be similar as well, but it would allow the board to go through this process just in a less formal manner.
John?
At the risk of repeating myself, are we soliciting for regional companies and national companies as well as South Carolina companies?
Many of the firms that we'll reach out to are going to be regional firms, yes. It is very important that they have a South Carolina arm to that firm, because it is critical that they know South Carolina law. The Act 388 has a huge impact on bonding capacities and ability to generate tax revenue. So they have to have experience in South Carolina law.
Yeah, the thing is, national companies, because the national typically have expertise in all the jurisdictions of geographies that they've been working on. So a national firm.
They may have multiple offices.
offices.
Rachel, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wasn't done. I didn't know about Tanya during the presentation. I asked this question.
Rachel, we're really struggling to hear you.
I don't know if it's the connection or what, but I have both things going on. I can hear you guys well, but whenever I speak, there be some type of feedback coming.
I didn't get any of that.
She said, well, I heard, she was saying there might be some kind of connection, because she can hear us very well, and she didn't know, she didn't think it was on her end, it could be some feedback or something coming on this side.
Okay, all right, well,
You're on my cell phone.
we have a very sophisticated arrangement here today. We have Coke cans propping up Robin's cell phone, so it's
Let me
probably on
see if
our
I can, let me call you on the iPhone, now that we have time, and then we'll see. Hang up and I'll call you in a couple of minutes.
All right, we'll stop discussions till you're back.
Thank you.
Is this Verizon?
Sprint.
Sprint?
Give me some cookies, please. Yellow. Thank you.
I've got just 2 bars in here.
Let me try. They used to have a phone in here and they took it out.
No. Robin, do we have any spare phones we can bring?
I can.
Yeah, just in
Hi.
case.
All right, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, let me prop you back up and see how that goes in here yet.
Okay.
All right.
It sounds much better now that.
Yeah,
All right,
sounds better.
well, that's
That is
Verizon.
so much.
I think that's Verizon, our heart.
There we go.
Oh,
And the Coke.
There we go.
okay.
My husband had a thing come up today and it caused a conflict for me being there, so.
Okay, how's,
So my question was for Tanya, and it was just, I see on here, you know, the board giving input and things like that, and the board participation. That's voluntary / opt-in, opt-out type thing, right?
I believe that's the case. I assume we would follow a similar process that we did with the lobbyist.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, that's how I remembered it for the lobbying firm, and I did participate in that one, but likely wouldn't want to for this one, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So if I may just offer a couple points of what changes, but everything's in red that's new and changed. And off to the right is the areas, things that were deleted. Basically, I just moved things back to get us back on track on this schedule. We had to move back a month or forward a month. So March 3rd would be, we would bring forward a scope of work and ranking criteria for the board for any input. That's really where we build the solicitation, and so I want to get that right on the front end instead of finish the entire process and not have something that the board is interested in seeing in that bid response. So as soon as that, it really doesn't require a vote, but I just want to have a little bit of a discussion with the board on that scope. And then if all is well, then the following day we'll issue the request for information, send it out to a series of law firms or attorneys that we are aware, we have researched and found that provide bond counsel services. Then we would also ask that the following day that I assume the board chair may, we would request that the board chair reach out to board members and ask for participation in that committee. And then the bids will go out for a 2-week period, coming back March 18th. I think a 2-week time frame is a good time frame, and that would be the response deadline. And then the following day, we would distribute the materials to the committee members. We generally like to give about at least a week time frame for review of the materials before we come back and meet. And then when we come back and meet, the procurement office will facilitate the discussion. We'll discuss all the responding firms, rank the criteria, narrow the pool down, and assign references for members to check. I am highly recommending that the board have an in-person interview process, but I would recommend that you narrow it down to a few first and then ask them to come and present to you, because it's very critical that they have good communication skills and you believe and trust in the information that they're providing you. And I think a face-to-face look at that is very important. So I'm suggesting 2 meetings, one to narrow it down and then a second to have in face-to-face interviews. And then as soon as that decision is made, we can go to the full board for a vote.
Dick, anything?
What's the term of the engagement letter? What do you anticipate when you put out the bid? What's the term?
Well, generally we have a 5-year contract. And then we have 2 1-year extensions, optional 1-year extensions, so maximum of 7 years. I would recommend a length of time in that manner, with a clause that says if we're not happy, we can have the right to terminate on either party. So it is, especially with the referendum, and we have 4 or 5 years, we're going to know we're going to be issuing a series of bonds. I think it's important to have consistency there.
So I have a question. So the board, since we're gonna be actively participating in vetting these candidates, then this contract will be between the attorney, bond counsel, and the board. I think it needs to be.
Generally, the bond resolutions distinguish it to the attorney to represent the district, the school district. They won't distinguish between administration and the board.
Yeah.
They are representing the school district. Because I have to work with them as well,
That
and the board does, so it might be limiting if it was only one or the other. So in all bond resolutions I've seen, they represent the school district as a whole.
Every bond resolution we've had in the foreseeable past and future has been with the same firm, correct?
Yes.
Is it possible that other firms do it differently?
No, not, maybe some slight differences, but for the whole, it's pretty much the same.
Now, without a board vote though, the resolutions don't happen.
No.
So it really boils down to board approval.
Now, I work
So
very closely with bond counsel, so if I don't have the ability to do that because they're the board's counsel, then I'll be limited on being able to provide information or seek information from them to actually implement and the bond resolution and process. So it's critical that we both have the ability to communicate with them.
John, you had a comment?
I'm not sure that the proximity of the work to the bond council is determinant in who is responsible or who they report to. I would think that if the board makes the hiring decision, and if the board is accountable to the community for the proper legal and profitable execution of these bonds, that the bond council is responsible to the board. That doesn't mean that other people in the organization can work closely with them, but I don't think that the closer you work, the more entitled you are to be the responsible person that they are to. Just my opinion.
I would agree with you, John, if we had a staff, if the board had a staff to be able to handle the constant communication that will come out with this type of agreement.
Well, I think from an executive point of view, we don't need that, what you just mentioned, but we have to be responsible.
Oh, we are definitely responsible, and
Okay.
that
All right.
vote,
Yeah, and
that
other-
vote before any funds get allocated,
Yeah,
you know, we have
and
to.
for the performance of the bond council.
Rachel, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna make a suggestion. I think that can really be worked out in the contract details with whoever we do select. I'm pretty sure we could add that as some type of designee clause or something like that. To where Tanya, like, yes, it is the board's contract, but that we designate certain people as, I think that can be worked into the contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, good point. I know that we don't need a recommendation to the board on this timeline, but I'd like to include the board in this and have their buy-in. Dick, Rachel, what do you think about that?
Agreed?
Yeah.
So, I move the finance committee recommend to the full board, I'm speaking slowly, right? The proposed timeline for request for information for bond counsel. Second?
Second.
Okay.
Second, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, more discussion. Any more discussion from anyone else in the room?
My question was, were they gonna put this out publicly for the bond council, or was she saying that they were gonna send it to a couple of companies and let us vote from there? I mean, let the board vote from there.
Do you have a copy? of
This
what-
one, yeah,
Okay.
right.
All right.
Reggie, would an RFI be appropriate on SCIBO or any?
My understanding was we were gonna follow the same process we did for the superintendent search when we took it.
Okay. And that,
In that case, we contact the firms, and we'll contact, 10, 12 firms and ask them to respond to the request for information.
Mhm.
And that was very successful.
It seemed to
And
work.
that's what the word solicitors.
But my question is, I just wanna make sure that everyone will have access to it, and not a certain group of particular people. That was,
They're so limited, the number of people that do this. I mean, this is not this is not common to, you know, there's 5 or 6 law firms in a little area like this that would do this kind of work. This is pretty specific work. So you've got a menu of folks in the region, and that's what you're gonna use. But most lawyers don't do this kind of work.
Gotcha, right, gotcha, okay.
Any further comments or discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I,
All right, unanimous. All right, discussion of impact fees. Dick, you suggested this
Thank you,
for discussion. Yes.
Madam Chair. I talked to Brian Llewellyn, who's the county councilman for my district, District 5, and I said, do you think we need a joint county council and school board meeting to discuss this impact fee study and overview? And he said, frankly, he said the county council is going to approve impact fees as long as they're reasonable, and I didn't ask what reasonable was. He said, we just want to know what you want. He recommends that the chair of the district's finance committee contact the chair of the county's finance committee, that's Joe Passman, and look at perhaps having a joint finance committee meeting to then bring a recommendation to both the county council and to the board, and we could go over all the details in this briefing. And
Well,
so that's his recommendation.
It's a good recommendation, but the board has already taken action. And we voted almost unanimously, what was it, 10-1 or something, Robin, that our board, our full board, would meet with county council. So while Brian's suggestion is well received, he probably didn't know we'd taken a board action there. I think we would have to bring this suggestion back to the board. I'm gonna put something on the table here, to get a conversation going. We have the Tischler Weiss, impact fee study in board docs, issued and presented to the board on December 10th, so roughly 2 months ago. I'm gonna make a motion, and it'll be open for discussion. I move the finance committee recommend to the full board the adoption of option 1 on page 12 of the impact fee study dated December 10th, 2019. We need a second for discussion.
I'll second for discussion. My main comment on that is, you know, I totally am for it moving forward. I just have a question with regard to the part where under current level of service standards it has school land per student in acres and the land cost per acre.
Rachel, what page are you on?
Sorry, that's on page 14.
14.
It's the,
Excuse me.
which is option 1, I believe, but under both of them. But it's the, I believe it falls with the concept of the fee being attached to land and acreage and things like that. And I want to make sure that because I know that there's just recently, Robert's been talking about land acquisition and things like that. And this may be too high of a, too far, you know, down the road type of thing, but I had hoped in the conversations that come from that subcommittee, a cost analysis or look into, sorry, I just had a kid walking. I would want to look into the whole land cost per acre part of it, as well as, you know, putting that as a part of a developer agreement where land is donated. So I don't know if we adopted impact fees. It's a question I don't know. It's probably a legal question of if we adopt the developer decides to donate land. Do you understand or follow me?
Waive part of the fee.
Because it's worked into the fee.
That's another option.
It's another option, but I agree with you, I
Yeah.
think it's somewhere down the road. And I
Yeah.
think we're
It's
missing.
a legal question that I would like to get some type of clarity on, because I hate for us to adopt an impact fee that ties in that land cost, and then we're tied to that,
Okay.
as opposed to getting the land donated.
So here's my thought. If this motion makes it out of committee today, and we don't know yet, we're early in the discussion, and gets to the board, there would be time between today and our next board meeting where the board would have to take it up under the finance committee report. March 3rd, there would be opportunities to raise questions between now and then, or at least submit them, and perhaps get some legal information. What this does today is put it in front of the board. The board can turn it up or down. They can deny option 1, they can make a motion to go to option 2 if they want to. They can shut the whole thing down.
Get in front of the board, I agree with
It's
you.
gotta get in front of the board. We had this presentation over 2 months ago.
Yep.
The board agreed 2 meetings ago to meet with county council. There has been no update, not a peep about moving impact fees forward. And I appreciate Dick putting it and suggesting this for our agenda today. I'm just trying to get the ball rolling. So, you know what I'm
I
saying?
just wanted to make that concern known so that
Gotcha.
if there is a way to get an answer on that, I don't know if that's a Wendy question or if that's,
Yeah.
a totally different.
It might be better question for the consultant, Carson Weiss. He would definitely be able to answer that question.
Tanya, would you be able to submit that question?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
Dick?
There's another question on timing. Brian recommended that we have a open forum before we make a decision, either at the school district or the county council, that we jointly sponsor an open forum to bring in developers, real estate, local politician, city council.
I think it's actually a requirement of the law
Yes.
when you do impact fees that you have stakeholder meetings, so I don't know what the exact.
You're
So
right.
what would the motion be at the board level? Let's say this makes it out of committee to the board, and the board will then take it up. I guess they would move to accept our recommendation, and that would to move forward with that, and that would either fail or move forward. At that juncture,
Yeah.
is that when the public forums would begin? What would that timeline look like?
I really believe that before we decide on which option, we need to have the public forums first.
Is that
Otherwise,
correct?
otherwise,
What's the
we're-
sequence?
otherwise we're gonna make,
Let me see.
we're gonna make a decision and then go there, and then the
Yeah.
public response may be so overwhelmingly one way or the other, we'll have to go back. So it seems to me that the first step is to sponsor a joint stakeholders forum and lay these options out to the stakeholders.
So I'm
for
looking
them.
at the laws, the fundamentals, the law that's included on page 4. Code of Laws, South Carolina, section 6-1910. Is anybody in the room familiar with this? Next steps, okay, so
Next
page
steps.
5 seems to lay out
Yeah.
a sequence of events. So, they collected their data, they did all of steps,
We have-
1 through 6. Stakeholder outreach comes next, prepare the ordinance, and interlocal agreements.
So then it seems to me that you would just have to amend your motion to say moving forward with the stakeholder part. That we recommend to the board that we move forward with the stakeholder, forums or whatever you want to call them with regard to the impact fee.
Here's what's wrong with page 5. I don't see any bullet point in there that points to when the county council approves and/or the school board. There's,
It should be between the two, between the stakeholder outreach and the prepare the ordinance and the local agreements.
well, we're just guessing.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I
I
don't
don't think
know.
there's any,
John, I'm sorry, you had your
Just-
hand up, I
Just a couple of
apologize.
comments.
Yeah,
I don't see the need for the board to vote on stakeholder outreach if stakeholder outreach is required by law.
but we're trying to get the sequence, John.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
trying to
So
follow
who-
the proper sequence.
And I ask this out of ignorance. Who actually determines that we are gonna have, that Beaufort County is going to have impact fees and what they are?
The county council.
The county council, okay. Be aware, I was approached by Joe Casamont, who really wants to see a sliding scale of impact fee. The less expensive the house, the less the impact fee is. That's the type of proposals you may see coming out of the council. But my primary concern is this, Bluffton is approving new developments all the time. They just approved another one in New Riverside this week. The longer this takes, the more developments are gonna sneak in under the wire and get grandfathered when we finally come up with something like this. I would urge that we assign the highest priority to this and inject some urgency into the process. Otherwise, we could have another half a dozen neighborhoods approved by Bluffton that will not be able to.
so that they don't, just approving it doesn't grandfather them. It's when
Pardon
they
me?
put it, just approving it doesn't get grandfather them from it. It's when they put in the
Correct,
permit.
Right.
And
it's from that point forward.
that's
Building
down the
permit.
road.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have the law up here. Sure. Bear with me, folks. You're all welcome to look it up as well. It's on page, the law is cited on page 4. It's very clear in the report to the board that the board does need to vote on one or the other. I mean, that's clear. We just don't know in what order this should take place.
Well, I would hate to see us vote on one or the other without stakeholder input. I would hate to vote on which option to adopt without having prior stakeholder input.
Well, that would make sense. But we gotta do it.
William?
Well, since it's like, we need to have stakeholder meetings, since the board also are having, the board is also considering having meetings for the school start times, maybe we can do those together.
There's different
Different stakeholders kind of.
Different set of
Stakeholders.
stakeholders.
different stakeholders.
As in what type of stakeholders?
We're talking realtors, we're talking developers, we're talking contractors.
Yeah, but,
Parents
I
or
mean,
something.
there may be some overlap, I mean, with like,
Not
citizens
very
who
much.
are wanting affordable housing options and
Yeah.
concerned that it's gonna impact
Right.
them, but,
but anytime any taxes go up, would that impact the people who pay taxes in every area?
It's not a tax
this
issue.
isn't a tax.
It's not a tax. It's
It's an impact, it's a fee that the developers pay.
One
You know,
time,
gotcha, okay.
it's a one-time.
Gotcha.
one time.
Oh, okay,
Time.
gotcha. Okay.
So,
Thanks for clarification.
Time.
This is also, the county is required to do the stakeholder meetings as well, and since we share a vendor, it would, I believe, make a lot of sense to have one set of meetings on both issues, so the realtors won't have to go to one county meeting and one school district meeting,
No.
and then add up the fees for both to figure out what we're gonna have to pay. If we can come together and have the consultant run the meeting on our behalves and show the total impact of what that would be to the new homeowner or new developer in that area. So, and I can see, I understand wanting a blessing from the board to move forward, but all it takes for me is to make a phone call to the contractor and maybe a phone call to the county and say, we're ready to do stakeholder meetings, can you please plan them and let us know a plan of what you would do and hear what some date options are, and then I could come back to the board with
And
that.
that sounds fair. So, we've already agreed that we were gonna meet with county council. I would assume both bodies would be present in their entirety for these stakeholder meetings. Why,
Maybe.
maybe not. But I would certainly assume that the invitation would be extended to both.
Absolutely.
So, since we already have a board action in place to do this, we haven't moved on it. Does anyone know why? We haven't had, like, you spoke to Brian and he said no need, but he probably didn't know we had a board action that said the two boards are coming together. Robin?
It has been moved on.
Okay.
It was moved on, and Mr. Smith said at our last meeting that he was gonna reach out and contact the board, since apparently when I reached to them, I was told that we were going, that they did not want to have a joint meeting, but Mr. Smith went to the meeting and he came back with different information, so Mr. Smith said that he would move on it. So that's where the board moved after your vote.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
So,
and,
Mr. Smith?
right, and I'm waiting to actually go back to their meeting and talk to them, so therefore it's all one agreement versus me going to one person, because right now that board has a lot going on, so it makes sense for me to go to them publicly the same way I did the first time. So I'm gonna go to the next school board, to the next council meeting and talk to them about that.
What we need to do is just have someone facilitate a date to meet. Robin is maintaining, are they refusing?
No,
Let's be
no,
plain.
no.
They just don't want to?
No, they did at the, no.
What is the deal here?
What was told to me is what was told to Dick. So that's what I came back. It was told to me that they would prefer to meet with the finance committee, the two finance committees to meet. That's what I was told. So the information that Dick gave you was what I was told. Mr. Smith went to the meeting and said he was told something different. So this is where we are.
All right, Rachel?
I guess my question is, do they want to meet with the respective finance committees so that we can both agree on an option and then take that option to the stakeholder meeting, or are they looking for something else?
My understanding is that the two finance committees would come with some options to go back to the full board, because they did not believe two full boards would get a lot accomplished. So they were looking at the small boards with the two recommendations to take back to the board. If you had two small groups to work.
Come up with one recommendation.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with doing either. I just want the ball to move, because it seems like doing the smaller groups is going to take a longer period of time. And I feel like if we could maybe, I don't know. I mean, we could as a board all agree that we want option one, and then we all as a board go and see them and they say they want option two. I think that the conversation needs to be between all of us.
well, there's feedback and there's feedback. The board ultimately holds the decision for the school district, okay? We can take that feedback, we can either accept that feedback, or we can reject the feedback. Remember who's giving us the feedback. Some of the folks that don't want to pay the impact fee, so ultimately the decision will be ours. I'm gonna withdraw my motion. And since the board has already agreed to meet with county council, I think our next step should be the stakeholder meeting. And then I think the proper sequence after that might be for maybe the two finance committees to meet, okay? Dick and Rachel, what do you think about that sequence?
Yeah, I like that idea. I like getting the stakeholder feedback before we
Yeah.
try to pick something.
Essentially, we'll just all be in one place, someone will facilitate the meeting. It won't be for the board or the county council to, produce a decision that evening, and then the two finance committees can meet. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, who's the lead?
Who is the lead? Who, is it our county councilman? Who is the lead?
I would think it would be the county administrator and would be the lead to do that, wouldn't you?
To get the two finance committees together, or?
No, to set up
They
the
do.
stakeholder, the
The
stakeholder.
stakeholders meetings.
Let me look at the law. Hold on. Tanya first, and then you, John. I'm cut her
I
off before.
can work with, I can reach out to Ms. Jacobs,
Ashley Jacobs.
and we can contact the Tischler Weiss and ask them to propose some dates.
John.
County council owns the decision, right? They should be setting up the stakeholders. We're giving them input. We're getting input from the stakeholders meeting, and then we give input to the county council. Then they make the decision. Stakeholders are not gonna make the decision. Ultimately, we're not gonna make the decision. We're gonna give input to the
No,
county
but we
council.
have to make a selection in here.
Yeah, I
You
think
do know
the board,
that,
I
right?
sort of.
We make a recommendation, but we're not gonna make the decision as to what is.
Well,
really-
correct, they ultimately,
I
get the final
I see it
But I
decision.
think it puts a lot of weight behind what, we're ultimately gonna recommend if we have the stakeholder meeting first and,
Decision needed for the
hear
board.
from them, and then if we give our recommendation to county council, then I think it puts more weight behind it.
I see it just like the budget process. You're almost certifying an amount or a dollar amount here in this case, and then you take it to county council for their 3 readings and final ordinance. So I see it very much the same way.
But I thought that Tanya said that she would contact the company, and that the company would set the meetings up.
Or I can contact Ashley Jacobs and ask them to do it, and
Yeah,
say that we're ready to move forward, which,
county
The
council.
contractor has to come to has to actually run it.
Right.
yes.
Right, and she said that I guess she already had a contractor.
We do.
You mean Tischler, Weiss, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right,
Yes.
and she would say that she would have the contractor. She could contact the contractor and have her set the meeting. So maybe so maybe she should have the contractor and Ashley Jacobs talks as well, so they can
That's
get
cool.
so that they can work that out. I'm just.
That's what we're
I just-
suggesting.
Okay, so anyway, I'm just getting a clear understanding because I heard her say something else, and then I think I heard you say something, and then that's what she said.
I can understand the county taking the lead on that.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
well, yeah, I just want to get
We
a
just
clar-
need to let them know we're
Understand.
ready to do that.
And so who sounds the alarm for all the stakeholders? Both the school district outreach and both county council? And Tischler Weiss representative would be present for this event,
Absolutely,
correct?
yes.
I think it's in our best interest to schedule that as soon as possible. John, did you have a question?
No.
No. Anyone else, any input at this time? So I withdrew my motion. Are we bringing something to the full board at this juncture to let them know what we've discussed here?
I think we could do that just as an update, like,
Just maybe your
I mean,
report? Yeah, I mean, because essentially, I'm trying to look at the technical piece. We've already taken board action to meet with county council, so any further recommendations at this time would be redundant. Okay, so I mean, I don't have a motion at this time. Is that, Rachel, you good with that?
yes, it will.
Okey-doke?
Shall I reach out before the board meeting, or?
I would
Go ahead and
say, I
reach
would,
out as soon
Sooner,
as
as
possible.
soon as
Okay.
possible.
possible.
I will reach out to Ms. Jacobs, and then we'll work from there.
Now, I know we can't give you direction, but,
I have no issue with that.
But I think you're doing exactly the right thing. Restarting of the voting process,
It slows
what's been
it
voting on
down.
is paralysis by analysis.
I know.
We got the
Well,
okay to
well,
do this,
well-
we gotta go do it.
William,
Actually, I do take problem with that action, with that just now. I think that the chair of this committee needs to send a email to Dr. Rodriguez asking or requesting that if all is well, that he will assign someone to do that, because I do remember at the last meeting that Dr. Rodriguez was saying that some of our committees were giving some of his staff direction. And then I remember, Mr. Guy, and I think you also said that you remember that, so I don't think that it's our job to give his staff direction, so I think that someone should possibly email him and to let him know what we came with today,
Well, I agree with that,
right?
but the board's already taken action.
Okay, well, I mean, I just wanna
We've
make,
already said
make it clear though. I just wanna
No,
make sure.
I know, and I'm hypersensitive to that.
Okay,
I'm hypersensitive to not
Okay.
doing anything out of this
Okay.
committee
okay,
that would take
Okay.
away the control of the board.
yes, ma'am.
And, John, what do you?
No, I was just gonna say, Tanya's the representative of the superintendent, and nobody's giving her direction, because you're gonna run it by Frank anyway, right?
Yeah,
So he's got the veto power over whether or not you really do
in
it.
fact, he may be the one to reach out to her
Yeah, he might.
and with me on,
Right.
on a conference call or something, so it might be better for him to do that.
All right, so we did get the ball rolling after all. Okay.
That was the easy.
That was, yeah. So future agenda topics, Rachel, I'll go to you first.
I do not have any at this time.
Tanya?
I do not have any at this time. I'll have budget updates once a month. I assume we would just go to the full board with those and not this committee? Is that how you
Yeah.
wanna function with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
a question on it.
Yeah, Tim.
I attend several of the committee meetings and operations and academics, and there seems to be some overlapping of issues that do have financial implications, or may have financial implications. And I'm wondering how the committees would coordinate when they put together their agendas
Right.
or wishes or goals and objectives.
I know.
At the end of the day, it does come to one umbrella,
I know.
and it's the
Well,
education
I-
of students.
Let me say this, I am seldom, if not rarely, contacted by any other board members with suggestions want to be placed on the finance agenda. The chair very seldom, rarely suggests or provides topics for review. So, I'm certainly open to any board members, any committees, referral, but I don't receive them. So, I don't know if that answers your question. I have a future agenda topic, and it's a loose end that the finance committee has. The board told us, took action, that we can come back, the finance committee, and develop this procurement policy advisory committee. Now, that may no longer fit in our scope because it may not fit anymore with the coherent governance model, but nonetheless, they sent that back to the committee, and it's a loose end, and we've got to either handle it and develop it per board direction, or we've got to take it back to the board if this committee has concerns about coherent governance. So I'm suggesting that this go on the next agenda. We can't talk about it now because it's not on this agenda. But we've gotta put this on the next finance committee agenda, and maybe we'll get some answers at the work session so that we'll know how to proceed. Rachel, what do you think about that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, and I was also looking at the minutes, and you had asked previously about an update on the grants, but I believe you got an answer, yes?
Yeah, Tanya's aren't you doing an update to the full board on the status of those now?
I hadn't heard anything about that or a request for
Well,
that, so.
the most, I think you gave one, I don't know,
Yes.
the last
You gave one.
few months
Yes,
then,
full board.
so that kind of was an update.
So Rachel, did that meet your request?
Oh.
Yeah, and if I need to
Yes.
revisit it or put it in a different, suggestion or recommendation, I talked to Tanya too about like the timing of things, and I think that it's not required right now.
Okay, so that that's just, we have one right now, but others may surface between now and our next meeting. So we are scheduled to meet, and again, this is another agenda, a scope matter. We expanded our scope to include the 2 meetings a month, which again, now that we have the creation of the ad hoc policy committee, I'll just abbreviate it, that separate meeting that we decided and the board approved for us to develop policy may or may not be needed any longer. John?
It's, what I took away the other night is that the ad hoc,
A little louder, louder.
oh, okay,
Yeah, just a little louder.
very few people say that. What I took away the other night, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the ad hoc coherent governance policy review manual committee
Yes,
is only dealing with the existing policies in terms of what quadrant they go into under coherent governance. That, to me, gives the committees the freedom to continue work on developing policy. And then, if they develop a policy, perhaps if David's committee is still in business, they might decide which quadrant they're going to. But they don't wordsmith policy. That's still the committee's baby.
so Rachel, is this your understanding as well? You're on that committee. Dick, are you as well?
No.
No, you're not, okay.
Now, the part that we have not wordsmithed was the PEs or the OE. There has been a slight variation or wordsmithing done to other areas,
Okay,
but not PEs or the OEs. That's what I was the question I answered on today. So, that's where the finance policies would fall, essentially. So certainly if the finance committee had suggestions to those, we could visit them.
so, is it your understanding, and I haven't attended any of your ad hoc meetings, that we are free to continue developing finance policy at the committee level, at the finance committee level?
I mean, until the policy committee brings forward something, I don't see why not.
Okay, all right, then if that's the case, let's go back to looking at our 2 meetings in March, if we could. We're supposed to meet the second Tuesday and the second Thursday of the month. I can't do the second Tuesday, but I can do the second Thursday. That is the 12th of March.
I will be flying back from Texas
Okay, on the 12th?
on the 12th.
Is there a reason, Robin, you have the overview of everyone's schedule? What if we went to the following week? Would there be any conflicts, Tanya?
There is a conflict on the 18th, that is
Okay.
academics.
Okay,
And the 17th is at the
And the
Tuesday
7th
is the school board.
is a board
is a
meeting.
board meeting.
I don't know once because we're presenting or bringing forward the bulk of the product from the policy committee at our work session on February 28th.
29.
So I don't know if that's gonna change anything with regard to, because it is kind of open-ended.
No, I know it's open-ended. You're doing the best you can. I know. Okay.
Don't change things, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
I hate but I also don't want us to not have something scheduled, and, I mean, we could always cancel it if we needed to.
Well, let's do this. The only conflict, Rachel, that you have is what, the 12th?
Yeah, I'm gone, let's see, the 9th through the 12th, as of right now. I'm
Okay.
scheduled to be gone the 9th through the 12th.
Is there any way you would be able to participate by phone?
Let me check I can check what time my flight is, but I believe I'm flying out of there in the evening, so I'll probably be at the airport, and I don't know if you want me to participate there.
No, okay, that week won't work. All right, well, let's do this rather than
Yeah.
belabor this. maybe we can all contact Robin via email. Tanya, do you have any conflicts that are, other than our board meeting in March, that would definitely bump you out?
Is this for the regular finance committee meeting or an extra meeting?
One of each, so one would be policy development, one would be relegated to just a regular.
So we're looking for 2 meetings in March then.
Well,
Because you're not available the 10th, and so we're trying to find 2 meetings now in March?
I think that policy, what we just decided in the past was the policy development piece would be a discussion so large that it would require its own meeting.
Okay.
That we would schedule a separate meeting for any and all other matters that don't fall under policy development.
Right.
But like in January,
We
we didn't have the need for the regular meeting, so
Correct.
we just canceled it. I think it would be good for us to put 2 dates down.
That's what I'm asking for.
I'm sorry, I
That's all
didn't
right.
understand.
No, I didn't know.
So we
So
can
you're looking
always-
for 2 days?
Yes, we can always eliminate the second, so maybe, Tanya, I didn't get back to you, any conflicts that you might
I
have.
don't have any conflicts. I would
Okay.
just ask for some mercy in March because we are late, beginning to really get into the budget at that
Yes.
point, and we are down a staff member
Okay.
at this time, so,
You would
ask
only need
for
to
some
be
mercy
present
and
for
possibly to have it at the district office so that, it eliminates,
Yeah.
and this one would be at the district office anyway. I
Absolutely.
think the regular finance
Mhm.
committee would,
So
so,
2 district office meetings in March as opposed to one on Hilton Head, one district office.
So you all will just email me your
Yes.
availability for the month
Yes.
of March, and then I'll see where the commonalities are.
Excellent, and then we have to
That work?
factor Wendy in.
Wendy?
Because we actually, the committee actually gave her some things, to assist us with, when Dr. Rodriguez gave her on loan to us. We actually had some things in play already, and I'll send a little refresher to everybody, that the committee approved, to develop. So, I suppose
so I'm
that's
free
it
on
for
the
now.
19th. I'm free on Thursday.
You are free on the 19th? Who else is free on the 19th of March? Everybody? I am.
I believe I am.
Oh, that would be great. And Tanya, that would work for you?
Yes.
So that would be at the district office?
District office to convenience Tanya, and that would be like a regular finance committee meeting. So we'll work on putting the policy together. We'll coordinate that with Wendy as well.
5 o'clock or 5:30?
It is a
5 o'clock for a regular?
Thursday. I mean, 5's good for me. Tanya? Rachel?
5:30, that's good.
5 o'clock?
Well, how would 5 be? Can you make that?
To Hilton Head?
No, we're at district office on March 19th. It's a Thursday evening.
I can try to make that work, yes.
5 PM.
Yeah.
All right, so we have one down in the books and we'll work on the policy meeting. Okay? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? All right. Rachel, have a good night.
Thank you, y'all too.
Need some help?